I never told my mom I found the divorce papers she hid in her closet because the night she made my favorite dinner and said some things are too heavy for you to carry yet, I understood that she was already carrying enough for both of us and I wasn't brave enough to let her know I knew. The night I found the divorce papers, I was 13. It wasn't like I was snooping or anything. It was early October and cold was creeping in. I remembered she kept the heavy sweaters up in the top of her closet. I had to use the little footstool to reach. That's when I knocked down the envelope. Plain, worn, no label. Just thick enough to not be junk. It spilled open when it hit the floor. Inside were divorce papers. My mom's name typed clearly on one side. My dad's name on the other. Her signature at the bottom of her page. His side was blank. It was dated 8 months back. My stomach twisted up and I remember just sitting there, staring. 8 months. That meant I'd been going to school, watching movies with them, eating Sunday breakfast, all while this was sitting here like a loaded gun. I felt like I stepped into someone else's life. But that night, she made baked ziti. That might not mean much to anyone else, but to me it meant a lot. She only made it on birthdays or when I was sick. She even made the garlic bread from scratch and poured lemonade into the glass pitcher with real lemon slices. I asked her what the occasion was. She smiled and said, "Some things are too heavy for you to carry yet." I didn't bring up the papers. I didn't say I knew. I just nodded. Because deep down I could tell. She already carried enough. I didn't want to add anything more to her plate. Couldn't. So I kept her secret. And it became mine too. At first I thought he was just rough, loud. Always stomping into a room. Always needing the remote. Quick to lose his temper if the house was too noisy. Or if dinner wasn't ready. Or if the bills were mentioned. He worked as a contractor. Never steady hours. Came and went. Made cash sometimes. Blew it just as fast. My mom worked for a dentist's office downtown. She managed all the money. Paid the mortgage. Bought the food. Smiled when people asked how they were. When I was 10, he yelled at her so hard I heard the glasses rattle in the cabinet. She apologized. I remember that. She apologized. It didn't click until much later. The summer before high school, he started vanishing on weekends. Said he had contract work in Worcester, then Providence. Then Albany. We lived in western Massachusetts, so it was plausible. Barely. But he never brought home money. Only greasy receipts and stories. I remember one night I asked him if he'd be home for my birthday. He snapped, "Don't guilt trip me like your mother." That night, I saw her cry alone in the laundry room. I started noticing more. The bruises. The broken drawer handles. The way her voice would change when his truck pulled into the driveway. She'd go still. Quiet. Her smile would disappear, like flipping a switch. Senior year, a few days before graduation. I skipped school for senior ditch day. Came home early. The back door was open, which was weird. Mom never left it open. I walked inside and heard it right away. Him yelling, "You think you can take this house from me? You think you'll be anything without me? You're nothing." Then something slammed. I stepped into the kitchen and froze. He had her up against the fridge, one arm pressed hard across her chest. She looked so small. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked at him like she was done fighting. I didn't think. I rushed him. Threw myself at him. He barely moved. Just shoved me back so hard I hit the kitchen table. My head bounced off a chair. Mom screamed. That stopped him. He backed off, looking at both of us like we were some mess he didn't know how to clean. Then he left, slamming the door hard enough to knock a photo off the wall. She helped me sit up, pressed a bag of frozen peas to the side of my head. Neither of us said anything for a while. Then she whispered it again. "Some things are too heavy for you to carry yet." That was the last time she ever said that to me. I was 21 when it happened. I had just moved out to start working at an auto body shop full-time. She died in her sleep. Heart failure. That's what they told me. I think it was just too much. All of it. Too many years of holding up the sky by herself. After the funeral, I went through her room. I wasn't looking for anything. I just needed to be in her space. Her smell was still on the pillows. That's when I found the journals. Old notebooks, stacked in a shoebox under her bed. Right next to that same manila envelope. Divorce papers still unsigned. Still blank on his side. The journal started when I was around 8. She wrote in them late at night. You could see the tired handwriting. He told me today he'd take Jake if I ever tried to leave. Said he'd make up stories and paint me as crazy. I had to wear long sleeves all week. Jake asked about the bruise. Told him I bumped into the door. I tried to file the papers again today. He laughed. Said if I served him, he'd ruin me. He started watching me sleep. Just standing there. Like he's waiting for something. I read until I couldn't breathe. Until my hands went numb. She stayed because she was scared. Of him. Of losing me. Of what he'd do. All those years she held it in. And I let her. Because I wasn't ready. Because I was scared too. But after that, the fear left me. I didn't have room for it anymore. All I had left was anger. He had moved to Cranston, Rhode Island. Lived with a woman named Erica who was barely older than me. Ran a half-legit contracting business. From what I gathered, he was doing cash jobs and underbidding to win contracts, then screwing clients on materials. He had no idea I was watching. I followed his social media, looked up court records, dug into property records, found out he owed back taxes, had a couple of OSHA violations. Nothing major, but enough that he was walking a thin line. I wasn't going to beat him up. That's what he'd expect. That's what people like him understand. No, I was going to take his world apart piece by piece. Just like he did to her. People like my dad, they live for image. To everyone on the outside, he was a blue-collar hero. A man who built things with his hands. He told stories about my mom that made him sound like the victim. She couldn't handle real life, he'd say. Always stressed. Always nagging. His new girlfriend, Erica, ate it up. She posted photos of their simple life, showing off the backyard grill and the old truck he kept polished like a trophy. But he didn't know I had friends in places he forgot I existed. One of my high school friends, Leo, worked at the same building supply warehouse my dad used. I didn't tell Leo the whole story. I just asked him to keep an eye on orders going out under my dad's company name. A week later, he texted me. Hey, your dad bought cheap siding for that Pawtucket job. Like real cheap? Told the client it was premium. Exactly what I needed. I created an anonymous email. Pretended to be a former employee. Sent everything I found to the couple he was working for. Photos. Order receipts. Delivery reports. 2 days later, the husband posted in the local Facebook group for Rhode Island contractors, "Do not hire Mitch or Dot. Lies about materials, charges premium prices for garbage." Word spread. A few more clients stepped forward. It only took a week before his business rating tanked online. He posted a rant on Facebook that ended with, "Some bitter ex probably made this up." I wasn't done. See, when you work in construction, you need permits. You need inspections. And if you cut corners, OSHA and state boards love to hear about that. I gathered everything I could find: his past violations, expired certifications, and job site complaints. I filed 3 reports. 1 to OSHA. 1 to the Rhode Island Contractors Board. 1 to the local tax assessor's office. They started looking. His girlfriend posted a story one morning: "When it rains, it pours." A picture of his truck with a bright orange sticker across the window, out of compliance. He was losing contracts fast now. Had to refund 2 projects or face lawsuits. And still, I wasn't done. I didn't know much about Erica, only that she worked at a daycare and posted way too much. I went through every picture, every post, every tag. That's how I found her sister. A nurse in Providence. They were close. So I did something quiet. I reached out to the sister and told her the truth. Sent her scans of my mom's journal. Redacted names, but not his. She replied once, "Are you trying to scare her?" I just wrote, "I'm trying to save her from 20 years of hell." 3 days later, Erica left him. Just packed up and went. Took her dog, her car, and most of the furniture. He posted a status that night: "Funny how people run when things get hard." That's when I knew he was alone. But it still wasn't enough. Because none of this had touched what he really took from me. He told everyone she gave up. That she was fragile. That she let stress ruin her health. And maybe on paper it looked that way. But I had her words. Her truth. And I was going to put it in front of the whole world. I didn't want it to look like a bitter son ranting. That would make people tune out. No one listens when they think you're just angry. So I built it slow. I started a blog. Anonymous. I called it She Carried It All. I posted short entries based on her journals. Changed names, dates, locations just enough to keep it safe. But the emotions? The facts? All real. The posts were raw. Real. Things like, "He broke the bathroom mirror today. I cleaned it up before Jake could see. My hands bleeding. I still made dinner. He told me I couldn't leave because no one else would take a woman like me. Then he kissed me goodnight like nothing happened. People started reading. At first, it was just a handful. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Women messaged the blog's inbox saying they'd lived that life too. That they felt seen. One even wrote, "Thank you for reminding me I'm not crazy." Then a reporter from a small Providence news site emailed me. She said she'd been following the posts. Asked if I'd talk. I told her I wouldn't give names, but I'd tell her about the woman behind the blog. We met in a diner off I-95. I brought copies of my mom's journals. Told her everything. She listened. Wrote fast. Said it was the most powerful thing she'd read in years. The story went live a week later. She called it, "She Carried It All," a son's anonymous tribute to his mother's hidden struggle. It went viral. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was changing brake pads in the shop when my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it. But I picked up. "Jake," a woman's voice said. "This is Jeanette. I'm Mitch's sister." I hadn't spoken to her in years. She used to be my aunt. Now she was just a ghost from my childhood. "I saw the story," she said. "I know it's about Janine." I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't answer. She kept talking. "He's not doing well. Lost his license. Got sued by 2 clients. Erica's gone. He thinks you're behind it." "I am," I said. Silence. Then she said something I didn't expect. "He's scared." That made me pause. "Mitch, scared?" I didn't know if that felt good or just hollow. "He wants to meet you," she said. I said no. Then she said, "He says he found something. Something from your mom. He says it's a letter." My heart stopped. She had never told me about a letter. Not in the journals. Not in her will. But now I wondered, had she written something she couldn't bring herself to give me? I told Jeanette I'd come. Just once. Just to get the letter. We met in the diner parking lot. He looked older. Smaller. His face sunken in. His truck was missing a mirror. He walked like someone who'd been kicked too many times. He didn't try to hug me. Just held out an envelope. It was her handwriting. Neat. Slanted. My throat tightened. He said, "I found it in her coat pocket a week after the funeral." I didn't read it. Swear to God. I took it. He waited. Probably expected something. But I turned and left without a word. It wasn't long. Just a single page. But her words felt like they reached out from the grave. "Jake, if you're reading this, it means something's happened. Maybe I'm gone. Maybe you're old enough now. I want you to know I tried. I really did. I stayed because I was afraid of losing you. Of him turning you against me. He said he would. He said he'd make it look like I was crazy. I never stopped loving you. You were the only thing I ever did right. If someday you feel angry, use it. Not to hurt. To protect. To speak. To live in a way he never could. Love, Mom." I read it 10 times. And then, for the first time since she died, I cried until my legs gave out. Because no matter how many jobs Mitch lost, how many people knew the truth, one thing still stood untouched. The house. Our old home. My mom's house. He'd never signed those divorce papers. That meant he still had a legal claim. And I just learned he was filing a claim to force the sale. He wanted half. He was trying to sell the last piece of her. When I got the court notice, I sat in my car for 10 minutes just staring at the envelope. My hands shook the whole time. It wasn't just a house. It was hers. Her garden in the back. Her coat still hanging in the hall closet. The kitchen where she made ziti that night. I couldn't let him take it. But I knew he had a case. She never finalized the divorce. His name was still on the deed. Legally, he was entitled to half. I talked to a lawyer. She told me the truth, he's got a strong claim. Unless you can prove abuse or mental duress, the court might order a sale. I said, what if I could? When the day came, I walked into the courtroom with a box. Not full of evidence like in the movies, just one thing. Her words. I sat across from Mitch. He looked tired, like a man chasing scraps. He didn't even look at me. Just kept tapping a pen on the table. When it was my turn, I handed the judge a folder. I spoke clear. Simple. Just like she would have. I found these after she died. My mom kept journals. In them, she documented abuse, fear, threats. For years. I read one entry aloud. He said if I left, he'd take Jake. That he'd lie. That he'd win. And I believed him. That's the worst part. I believed him. The judge asked if we had proof the journals were hers. I handed over a handwriting analysis, letters she'd written me, and a note she left in a lunchbox once when I was 10. The judge looked through it all. Quiet. Careful. Then she said, I'll need time to consider this. I remember the letter arriving. Plain envelope. Black ink. No big dramatic moment. Just a folded sheet with a few lines. Based on evidence presented and the consistent documentation of emotional and psychological abuse, the court awards full ownership of the property to the respondent, Jacob R. I dropped to my knees in the kitchen and let the silence hold me. She had won. Through me, through her words, through everything she carried, we won. A week later, I saw him. I was walking to my truck from the grocery store. He was sitting on the curb. Not drunk. Not yelling. Just empty. He looked up and said, "You hate me that much?" I stood there for a second, then said, "No. I just finally saw you for what you are." He nodded. "You ruined me." I said, "You did that all by yourself." He didn't argue. I left him there. That was the last time I ever saw him. I wish I could say I felt nothing. That I walked away clean, proud, free. But I didn't. I carry guilt. For not speaking up sooner. For letting her carry so much alone. For being too scared to ask about the papers when I was 13. But I also carried her strength. Her words. Her story. I kept the house. Not to live in, but to turn it into something else, something good. It's a shelter now. For women with nowhere to go. It's called Janine's Place. Her name is on the front in blue paint. I go by once a month. Fix the gutters. Rake the leaves. Bring flowers to the kitchen windowsill. And every time I walk in, I feel her. Still carrying. But not alone anymore.